he struck her in front of 400 witnesses. The Luna of Coldfire Pack, his own mate. Then turned away to comfort the woman he hit her for. The bond shattered that night. Lyra crossed the Greywater into Iron Vale territory. Enemy land. Alpha King Kale Storm found her dripping river water and bond sickness. Raven's kingdom is collapsing. 47 wolves abandoned Coldfire. War is coming. Kale steadies her hand through the pain. Looks at her tactical maps like he's seeing her for the first time. Stay. Armies gathering at the border. Raven at Iron Vale's gates demanding her return. The architect who built his empire now stands against him. In enemy colors. Blood on her lip. Come home. Lyra meets his eyes. I already am. What breaks a woman who spent 7 years building an empire? A slap. 400 witnesses. And watching him turn away to comfort the woman he hit her for. The Great Hall of Coldfire Peak, carved from black volcanic stone, reaches 60 feet into shadow. Iron chandeliers heavy with white candles cast everything amber. The hall packed with elders in ceremonial robes, still dusty from the evening patrol. Omegas clutching each other near the doorways. Pups who crept to the mezzanine railing to peer down at whatever's about to happen, all of them watching. The hall goes silent. Lyra Vale stands at the center. 26 years old. Luna of Coldfire Pack for 3 years. Head of Border Intelligence for 5 years before that. The woman who redesigned the entire northern defensive perimeter when she was 19. And everyone said it couldn't be done. She's still standing when Raven's hand connects with her face. The sound it makes echoes off vaulted ceilings. Not thunder. Not lightning splitting an ancient oak. Just skin on skin. The sharp, devastating physics of an open palm landing across the face of the woman who spent 2,555 days building everything he now calls his kingdom. Lyra doesn't fall. Her head snaps left. Vision whites out for half a second, then sharpens with brutal clarity. Blood blooms across her tongue. Copper. Familiar. She's tasted it before during combat drills, but never like this. Never in front of her own pack. Never delivered by the hand that 3 years ago slid a ceremonial band onto her finger and called her irreplaceable so the metallic taste spreads. She doesn't spit. Doesn't swallow. Just holds it there like evidence she might need later. The bruise starts forming immediately. She can feel the heat spreading across her left cheekbone. 5 fingers. Clear as a signature. His signature. On her face. In front of everyone who's supposed to respect her authority. She absorbs the blow with the terrible stillness of someone who's been bracing for something like this for a long time without admitting it. 18 months of small erosions, little cuts, dismissed suggestions in council meetings, requests to wear softer colors at diplomatic functions, his hand on her elbow, steering her away from conversations he decided she shouldn't finish. All of it leading here, to this moment, to his hand, her face. Their audience Raven Drake stands 6'4", 28 years old, alpha of Coldfire Pack, dark hair, sharp jaw, shoulders built for carrying the weight of a kingdom, except he never actually carried the weight. She did, his eyes lock on hers. Gold. Beautiful. Empty of everything except impatience. Not rage, not shame. Just impatience that she's making this difficult. Behind him, pressed against his arm, with the practiced fragility of a woman who learned exactly how useful helplessness can be, stands Cerys. She arrived at Coldfire Peak 8 weeks ago. Diplomatic envoy from Silverfen Pack. Her father's territory failing. She came asking for aid, arrived with alabaster skin and river-straight silver hair and enormous pale eyes that fill with tears at exactly the moment they cause maximum damage. Lyra watched it happen in real time. Week 1 Cerys, crying because the training drills were too loud. Week 3 Cerys, sitting progressively closer to Raven during council meetings. Week 5 Cerys, questioning Lyra's tactical decisions in front of senior warriors with that trembling chin routine that made every challenge sound like a gentle suggestion from someone too innocent to understand pack politics. Week 7 Cerys, building a faction. Omegas who wanted softer leadership. Younger wolves who thought Lyra's competence looked like coldness. Week 8. Tonight, Lyra found Cerys in the antechamber before evening assembly. Sitting in the Luna's chair, trying on the Luna's crown, the ceremonial crown Lyra earned by preventing a border war through 3 months of negotiations, so delicate one wrong word could have collapsed the entire Eastern Alliance. Cerys just sitting there, like she was trying on shoes. Lyra closed the door, kept her voice level. Professional, you will not sit in that seat tonight. You are a guest. Remember your place. Cerys's chin trembled, eyes filled. She stood and walked directly to Raven and whispered something. Lyra couldn't hear. Whatever it was brought, Raven, striding into the great hall with his jaw locked and his aura crackling like a storm rolling off the mountain. He said something about respect, about grace, about Lyra's inability to treat a guest with the dignity a Luna was expected to show. His voice rose with every word. Lyra, who swallowed her dignity in silence for 8 weeks while watching Cerys systematically dismantle her authority. One whispered conversation at a time, finally said one sentence back to him. Just one. She sat in my chair, Raven. I reminded her it wasn't hers. That's when his hand moved. Now she's standing here, tasting her own blood, while the candle flames above barely stir in the suspended air of a hall that's forgotten how to breathe. Lyra turns her head back slowly. Her dark eyes find his across 2 feet of charged air. She looks at him with devastating clarity that only arrives at the exact moment something inside you finishes breaking. Not cracking, not bending, but completing its fracture with a clean final snap you'll feel for the rest of your life. Raven stares back. For just a fraction of a second, the gold in his eyes flickers. Something behind the impatience cracks. A ghost. A remnant of the man she believed he was when she was 23, and he asked her to be his Luna in a forest clearing with snow in his hair. His hand still raised at his side trembles, almost most imperceptibly, like his body knows what his brain hasn't processed yet. Then Cerys makes a small wounded sound behind him. Raven turns, away from Lyra, toward Cerys. That's the moment. Not the strike. That, the turning away. Choosing to comfort the woman he just humiliated his Luna for, instead of checking whether the woman he hit is even standing. That's when Lyra understands everything completely and permanently. Her brain shifts, goes cold, tactical, the same mode that kicked in 7 years ago when she was 19 analyzing the northern perimeter and saw 14 gaps nobody else noticed. The mode that designed offensive doctrine when she was 22. The mode that negotiates treaties and runs intelligence networks for and builds empires for men who think presence equals power distance to main doors. 40 feet. Time before bond sickness starts. 3 hours. Maybe less. Nearest enemy territory. 8 miles south across the Greywater River. She'd researched bond severance 6 months ago. Not planning. Just contingency. The way intelligence officers research everything that might become relevant. 14 case studies tucked into her private files. Average duration, 6 to 8 hours. Survival rate, 97% if you don't fight it. Calculation complete. Decision made. 3 seconds. She straightens her spine, rolls her shoulders back, presses her tongue once against the split, inside her cheek tasting blood, committing the sensation to memory, the way a soldier commits a battlefield to memory. Not to mourn it, to learn from it. Then she walks, not toward the royal wing where her chambers are, not toward the healer's quarters, not toward any room in this entire stone fortress that she helped design the security protocols for. She walks toward the main doors, the ones that face south, that open onto the courtyard and the long road down the mountain and the dark borderlands beyond where Raven's authority ends, and his pride won't let him follow. Her boots strike obsidian floor in slow, measured clicks. Each step lands like a verdict being read aloud in a courtroom, where she's judge and jury, and the defendant just realized he's already been sentenced. No one moves, no one speaks. 400 wolves part around her like water around stone, opening a path she didn't ask for, but they give anyway, because some part of them recognizes what's happening, even if they can't name it yet. She pushes through the heavy iron doors without looking back. The night air hits her like cold water, sharp, biting. Smelling of pine resin and coming frost and freedom she didn't know she was suffocating without. She crosses the courtyard without slowing. Her breath makes clouds in the freezing air. The hem of her formal gown drags across packed earth, but she doesn't lift it. Doesn't care. It's Raven's favorite, silver silk. He chose it. Told her it made her look softer, more approachable. Less like the tactical genius everyone whispered about, and more like the decorative mate an alpha was supposed to have. She's done being decorative. The southern gate stands open. 2 guards on duty. They see her coming. See the bruise forming. See the blood on her lip. See the way she's walking with absolute purpose toward the forest road. Neither moves to stop her. One even steps aside further. Clears the path. She steps through. The ancient pines swallow her immediately. Darkness so complete, she has to let her eyes adjust. The road beneath her feet packed dirt, turning to pine needles, turning to moss-covered stone. She walks into the dark without hesitation, without looking back, without allowing herself to feel the full weight of what she's leaving, until Coldfire's torches are invisible behind her, and the only sound is her own breathing and the wind moving through branches overhead. The mate bond pulses at her sternum. That constant rhythm that's been a comfort for 3 years now feels like a leash she only just noticed she's wearing, a tether connecting her to a man who chose performance over partnership, who valued appearance over competence, who struck her to impress someone he'd known 8 weeks. She presses one hand flat against her chest, feels the pull. The connection trying to drag her back, keeps walking. What nobody in that hall knew, what Raven never understood even after 3 years of marriage. Lyra spent 2,555 days building what he called his kingdom. She arrived at Coldfire when she was 19, junior intelligence analyst, daughter of a border patrol officer who died securing the northern pass. She had her father's tactical mind and her mother's ability to see 3 moves ahead in any negotiation. The Alpha Council's was reviewing perimeter security. Standard audit, everyone nodding along with the existing setup, because it had worked for 30 years, so why change it? Lyra stood in the back of the room, 19 years old, newest analyst on staff. Raised her hand. There are 14 exploitable gaps in the current perimeter. Every head turned. The head of security, a man's twice her age, with 3 times her experience, looked at her like she'd just announced. Gravity was optional. 14 gaps. Yes, sir. I mapped them. If you want, I can show you. She spread her hand-drawn schematic across the table. Red marks indicating every weak point. Detailed notes on approach vectors. Probability assessments for different attack scenarios. Raven Drake walked into the room, burying her presentation. 21 years old, just appointed Alpha after his father died suddenly from a heart condition nobody saw coming. Young, ambitious, desperate to prove he deserved the title he inherited. He looked at the map, looked at her, looked back at the map. Who made this? I did, Alpha. You're sure these gaps exist? Test them yourself. I'll wait, he did. Took a patrol through every point she marked. Came back 3 days later with a report confirming every single gap. 14 ways an enemy force could penetrate Coldfire's defenses. 14 vulnerabilities that had existed for 3 decades because everyone assumed the old system worked. When can you start? He asked. Start what? Redesigning the entire perimeter. You found the problems. Fix them. She was 19. He gave her a team, a budget. 6 months, she finished in 4. The new defensive perimeter became the model other packs studied. Delegations came from 6 territories to tour Coldfire's setup and take notes. Raven stood in front of them, looking impressive, talking about innovation and forward thinking. Lyra stood 3 steps behind him, holding the actual schematics nobody asked to see. When she was 21, he promoted her to head of border intelligence, youngest person ever to hold the position. She mapped the Greywater River that year, found a granite shelf that didn't exist on any official document, natural ford, wide enough for 2 people. Water only thigh-deep even during spring snowmelt. She filed the map in her private notes, never the official archive, because good intelligence Officers always keep one route nobody else knows, just in case the empire you build becomes a cage. And the only way out is a river crossing that doesn't exist on any map, except the one you drew yourself and hid in a waterproof case under the floorboards of your office. When she was 22, the Eastern Pack raided a supply convoy. 3 wolves dead. Everyone screaming for retaliation, full assault. Burn their territory. Make them pay in blood. Raven wanted war. Lyra drew up the offensive doctrine instead. Precision strikes. Targeted disruption. Surgical removal of their command structure without massacring civilians who had nothing to do with the raid. You think like a general, Raven said. She thought like someone who didn't want to bury friends for a fight that could be won without a slaughter. The offensive worked. The Eastern Pack's leadership collapsed. New Alpha took over. Sued for peace, Raven stood in front of the treaty signing looking like a visionary. Lyra sat at a side table managing the actual negotiations. When she was 23, he asked her to be his Luna. They were in the forest after a patrol. Snow falling, his breath making clouds between them. You're already running this pack. Might as well make it official. He meant it as a compliment. She heard it as an acknowledgement, finally. Recognition for the work she'd been doing. The strategies she'd designed. The systems she'd built. She said yes. For the first year, it worked. She built trade routes. Revenue increased 40%. She restructured the intelligence network. 6 packs now sharing information through encrypted channels she designed. She negotiated the Eastern Alliance Treaty, prevented a war everyone said was inevitable. Raven stood beside her at public events, held her hand, called her his brilliant Luna, told other alphas she was the reason Coldfire thrived. Then the cracks started, small at first, council meeting where she's mid-sentence, explaining a supply chain vulnerability, and Raven cuts her off. Darling, let's discuss this privately. Translation. Shut up in front of my people. Diplomatic function where he asks her to change clothes before they leave. Something softer. You look too severe. Translation. Stop looking competent. Intelligence briefing where she presents analysis showing financial irregularities in the Eastern lumber trade, and he dismisses it without reading her report. I'm sure it's fine. You worry too much. Translation. I don't want to hear about problems that might make me look bad. She started keeping copies. Every decision she made that Raven later claimed as his own. Every strategy she designed that he presented to councils as his innovation. Every treaty clause she negotiated that he signed while cameras flashed. Not paranoia, insurance. Because somewhere deep in her tactical brain, the part that maps vulnerabilities and calculates threat probabilities started sending up warning signals. Something's wrong. You're being eroded. Document everything. Then Saris arrived. She came on a Tuesday with tears already in her eyes, asking for aid for her father's failing pack. War helplessness like armor. Moved through Coldfire's political landscape with the precision of someone who studied the terrain before she arrived. Week by week, she replaced Lyra in every room that mattered, until 8 weeks later, Lyra walks out of a great hall with blood on her tongue and a contingency plan activated. The forest closes deeper around her. Pine branches overhead blocking most of the moonlight. The path beneath Lyra's feet barely visible. She's walked this route before, 3 years ago, when she was mapping potential evacuation corridors. Standard security protocol. Every intelligence officer worth their rank knows the terrain around their territory. But she knows something else, something she's never told anyone. That granite shelf 5 miles south, she memorized the route. Every landmark, every turn. Every potential ambush point, 48 minutes from Coldfire's southern gate to the granite shelf. She's been walking 32 minutes, 16 to go. The bond pulls harder. Like a hand clenched around her sternum trying to drag her back, her wolf whimpers somewhere deep in her consciousness, confused. The anchor she's known for 3 years suddenly unstable, trembling, beginning to come apart. Lyra keeps walking. She finds the shelf exactly where her maps said it would be. Wide ledge of flat stone running just below the waterline. The gray water rushing past. Fast current from snowmelt, but shallow where the shelf runs. She steps into the water. Cold hits her like a fist, thigh deep. Her formal gown soaks through as immediately. The silk Raven chose because it made her look soft clings to her legs, making each step harder. She doesn't care. She wades across, each step deliberate. The current pulls at her, but the shelf holds, exactly like she calculated 5 years ago, when she mapped this crossing and filed it nowhere except in her own memory. Halfway across, the mate bond goes wild. Pain explodes behind her sternum. Like invisible hands grab the bond and yanked, Lyra staggers, catches herself, keeps moving 3 more steps. The pain crescendos. Peak of the first wave, then breaks. Recedes. She drags herself up the far bank, stands dripping in Iron Veil territory. The land belonging to Alpha Kale Storm. The pack that's maintained cold hostile truce with Coldfire for 11 years. Raven's patrols won't follow her here. His pride won't allow it. Sybil. Clean. Tactical. She turns, looks back across the gray water toward Coldfire territory, feels no urge to return. She walks another half-mile before she hears them. The patrol, nearly silent displacement of undergrowth. Careful compression of pine needles beneath large deliberate paws. Moving in coordinated pattern. Flanking. Lyra stops, stands still, center of the path, hands visible at her sides. Chin raised. Running from a patrol in their own territory is the fastest way to end up dead. She stays exactly where she is, waits. 4 enormous wolves materialize from the tree line. Dark-coated. Moving with low-controlled menace of animals trained to precision, they circle her. Absolute containment. The largest wolf steps forward, shifts, the transformation fluid and devastating. Wolf collapsing into man in a ripple of muscle and bone that resolves into someone standing 6'3" in dark, tactical clothing. Broad, scarred face. Physical stillness that comes not from calm but from absolute control over something very powerful. Kale Storm. Alpha of Iron Veil. He looks at her, wet clothes, shaking from cold, and the bond unraveling in her chest. The careful posture she's maintaining through visible effort. His gaze settles on the left side of her face. The bruise has developed fully in the cold air. Dark purple fading to green at the edges. The handprint unmistakable in its shape. Kale's jaw tightens. Almost imperceptibly. "You're on Iron Veil land." Lyra's voice comes out steady. "Good. She was worried it wouldn't." "I know. You crossed deliberately." "Yes." Graywater granite shelf upstream. "I mapped it 5 years ago. Filed it nowhere. Came here on purpose. You're Coldfire." "I was." 3 seconds of silence. Another wave of bond pain moves through her chest, not as severe as the first. More like a warning tremor before the earthquake. She absorbs it. Doesn't let it show. Kale watches her do it. She can tell by the slight narrowing of his eyes he sees more than she intended. "Can you walk?" "Yes." He studies her 1 moment longer, then turns with the unhurried authority of a man who has never once needed to look back to confirm he's being followed. "Bring her." Carefully, Iron Veil stronghold rises from the northern face of the Ashford Range like it grew there instead of being built. Dark granite. Ancient timber. Walls 4 feet thick embedded into the mountain itself. No marble archways. No gilded council chambers. No great hall designed to make visitors feel simultaneously awed and diminished. Just function. Pure, uncompromising function. The courtyard packed earth, scarred with weapons training. Towers rising at defensive angles instead of aesthetic ones. Everything positioned for survival, not appearance. It smells like iron and wood smoke and old pine, like a place that never once pretended to be something it wasn't. Lyra's tactical brain catalogs details automatically even through the bond sickness starting to intensify. Guard rotations, sight lines, defensive positions. 7 years of intelligence training doesn't turn off just because you're hypothermic and your sternum feels like it's being crushed in a vise. Kale leads her through the main entrance, stone corridors lit by oil lamps instead of chandeliers. They pass warriors who stop and stare, not subtle about it. A Coldfire wolf dripping river water and shaking from bond sickness being escorted by their alpha doesn't happen every day. Probably doesn't happen ever. They reached. He pushes open a heavy wooden door. Bryn. A woman looks up from a work table covered in dried herbs and clay jars. Compact build. Iron gray hair pulled back severe. Eyes that have seen everything twice and weren't impressed the first time. She takes one look at Lyra and moves. No questions. No hesitation. Just efficient motion of someone who stopped being surprised by anything approximately 3 decades ago. Bond severance. How long since it snapped? It hasn't. Lyra's teeth chatter. She tries to stop them. Can't. In progress. Approximately 90 minutes since initial separation. Bryn's hands move to Lyra's sternum, flat palm over the place where the bond throbs. Professional assessment. Clinical. It'll get worse before it ends. I know. 6 to 8 hours per medical literature. Survival rate 97%, barring complications. Something flickers in Bryn's expression. Might be respect. Might be amusement. Hard to tell with someone who keeps their emotions locked down tighter than a vault. You've done your research. I'm head of border intelligence. I research everything. Former head. The correction lands. Former, past tense. That position belongs to Coldfire, which belongs to Raven, who belongs to a life Lyra walked away from less than 2 hours ago. Bryn strips Lyra's wet outer layers. The ruined silk gown pooling on the floor, like evidence of every terrible decision that led here, wraps her in heavy wool blankets that smell like wood smoke and something medicinal, presses a clay cup of liquid into her hands. Drink. Lyra drinks. Bitter. Hot. Burns going down but settles the shaking slightly. The door opens. Cale enters carrying dry clothes and a ceramic bowl of broth, sets them on the table beside Lyra's bed with complete matter-of-factness, like escorting enemy wolves into his territory and providing medical care and fresh clothing is just normal. Tuesday activity. He pulls a chair to the bedside, sits, forearms on his knees, looks at her with dark, unreadable eyes. You're Lyra Vale, Coldfire's Luna, former head of border intelligence. You redesigned their northern perimeter 7 years ago. Not a question. Statement of fact, you studied my work. It was excellent. Raven never deserved the strategist he had. The words land without malice. Simply true. Like he's commenting on weather patterns or crop yields. Just objective assessment of observable reality. His eyes move briefly to the bruise on her face. Muscle works in his jaw. He looks away. Looks back. Why here? Because Raven won't follow me across this border. His pride won't allow it. She meets his gaze. Holds it. And if you intend to use me as hostage, a woman who knows every defensive weakness in Coldfire's perimeter is worth considerably more as ally. Something shifts at the corner of Cale's mouth. Not quite a smile, more like the expression of someone who encountered something unexpected and found it against better judgment. Interesting. Rest. We'll talk when you're not hypothermic. He stands. Lyra's voice stops him. Cale. He turns. Why did you bring me in? You had every reason to turn me back to the river. He looks at her. Eyes drop briefly, almost involuntarily, to the bruise darkening across her cheekbone. Then back up. No, I didn't. He leaves. The third wave hits just after midnight, not gradual. No warning tremor, just detonation. Pain explodes behind her ribs, like someone set off a bomb in her chest cavity. Every nerve ending fires simultaneously, the bond tearing itself apart one fiber at a time. Lyra's back arches off the bed, involuntary. She tries to control it. Can't. Her wolf screams. Blind animal panic of a creature whose entire world just collapsed. And she doesn't understand why, because wolves mate for life. The bond isn't supposed to break. It's supposed to be permanent anchor stability certainty, except when the person on the other end chooses performance over partnership. When he values appearance more than the woman who built his empire. When he strikes you in front of witnesses to impress someone he's known 8 weeks, then the bond becomes a chain. And chains are meant to be broken. The wave peaks. Holds. Keeps holding. Lyra grips the bed frame, knuckles white. Jaw locked so tight her teeth ache. Bryn works steadily. Cool cloth on Lyra's forehead. Hands checking pulse, monitoring fever. Fighting it makes it worse. Let it go. Can't. You can. You're choosing not to. Same thing. It's really not. Lyra wants to argue. wants to explain that control is the only thing keeping her functional, that if she lets go, she'll fracture into pieces that won't fit back together. But the pain steals her words, steals everything except the animal need to survive. The door opens, footsteps. Measured. Deliberate Kale, he's back. She doesn't open her eyes. Can't. Too much effort feels him sit in the chair beside her bed. Close enough she can sense his presence. Solid. Steady. Immovable. You're still fighting. His voice cuts through the pain. Deep. Calm. Anchoring. Have to. No, you don't. It's already happening. Control won't change the outcome. It'll just make the process longer. The wave intensifies. Apparently, pain doesn't care about maximum thresholds. A sound escapes her. Raw. Uncontrolled. The kind of sound she would never permit under any other circumstances. Kale moves. Not away. Closer. Reaches across. Takes her hand in both of his. Large. Rough-palmed. Completely steady. He doesn't tell her it'll be fine. Doesn't offer false comfort. Just holds on with quiet, immovable certainty of someone who decided she's not going through this alone. And that's the end of the discussion. The warmth of his grip moves through her hand. Settles somewhere in her chest, not where the bond pain is. Adjacent to it, like a counterweight, her wolf goes still. Curious. Paying attention to the warmth in a way that's entirely different from the consuming pull of the mate bond. This isn't a command, isn't a leash. This is a question, an offer. Presence without demand, the wave breaks. Recedes, Lyra lies in the aftermath, wrung out hollow, startlingly clear. The bond is gone. Raven is gone from her chest. 3 years of ambient emotion simply absent. A room emptied of furniture. The silence where his presence used to hum constant backdrop to everything she did. It feels. Not like loss. Like space. It's done. Her voice comes out hoarse. Wrecked? Yes. Kale releases her hand. Stands. Looks down at her with something in his expression she can't quite read. Sleep. Tomorrow we talk. He's gone before she can respond. Lyra sleeps for 11 hours, wakes to sunlight streaming through a narrow window. Clean clothes folded at the foot of her bed. Dark tactical trousers. Heavy slate gray long sleeve. Sturdy boots, practical. Durable. Nothing decorative. The deliberate opposite of every suffocating silk dress Raven preferred her to wear. She dresses. Looks at herself in the polished metal surface, serving as mirror. The bruise still visible. Dark purple fading to green. Handprint clear, she memorizes it. Every detail. The shape. The color, the evidence, then turns away. Finds her way to the war room by following the sound of voices and the scent of strong coffee and tactical discussions. 7 wolves look up when she enters. Kale at the head of the table. Topographical map spread in front of him. Thalia on his left. Female lieutenant. Silver hair cropped military short. Eyes assessing Lyra with frank hostility. She's Coldfire. Kale doesn't look up from the map. She was. Her name is Lyra Vale. He nods toward the map. Raven moved a battalion to the Breakwater crossing at dawn. Lyra walks to the table. No hesitation, this is her language. Strategy. Terrain. Troop movements. Which crossing? Main ford. 12 miles wide. Lyra's finger traces the river south on the map. Barely needs to look. She's memorized this terrain. He won't push there. That battalion exists to make you watch the main ford. Her finger stops. Taps once, he crosses here. Mill Run shallows. Seasonal low water. Rocky bottom. Forward unit crosses in pairs and reforms on your bank before your nearest patrol rotation brings anyone within visual range. If he reforms before your southern patrol, a dark-haired lieutenant leans forward, stares at the map. He has clean corridor to our lumber supply route. 3 miles of uncontested movement. The room goes still. Thalia's eyes haven't moved from the map. The hostility hasn't disappeared, but something else entered it. Involuntary recalibration of someone receiving information they didn't have before and recognizing its value despite not wanting to. How do you know? Because I designed that maneuver 4 years ago. Kale's voice cuts across the room. Quiet. Commanding. Reinforce mill. Run. Double Southern Patrol. Thalia maintain eyes on main ford. He needs to believe we're watching the obvious. Pause. Bring a chair for our guest. She stays for full briefing. Lyra sits at the war table of Iron Veil Pack. surrounded by people with every reason to distrust her, and feels for the first time in 3 is entirely in the right place. The next 2 weeks establish a pattern: morning briefings in the war room. Lyra identifying Coldfire tactical patterns, proposing Iron Veil counterstrategies, Kale listening with focused attention, asking precise questions at exactly right moments. Retaining everything, Thalia stops glaring somewhere around day 4, starts asking for clarification on Coldfire defensive doctrine, then starts incorporating Lyra's analysis into patrol rotations. By day 7, the hostility has transformed into something approaching professional respect. Not friendship, not trust, but acknowledgement that competence deserves recognition regardless of where it comes from. Afternoons Lyra spends in the archives. Iron Veil's intelligence setup is functional, but basic, nothing like the sophisticated network she built at Coldfire. She starts drafting improvements, can't help herself, sees inefficiency, and her brain automatically designs solutions, better information sharing protocols, encrypted communication channels, threat assessment matrices. She's 3 days into redesigning their entire intelligence infrastructure when she realizes she's doing it again, building someone else's empire. Except, this time nobody asked her to be smaller. Nobody told her to wear softer colors, or speak more gently, or stop looking so competent it made men uncomfortable. Kale just let her work, gave her access to whatever she needed, implemented her suggestions without needing to claim credit for them. It's disorienting. Evening wall walks become routine, the elevated perimeter walkway circling the stronghold. Lyra paces it after briefings. Needs the altitude, the cold air, the vast indifferent sky that doesn't care about pack politics or severed bonds or women, rebuilding themselves from tactical genes up. That's where the pups find her. 4 of them. Small wolves, enormous eyes, mud permanently embedded under fingernails. Their spokeswoman is 8 years old. Introduces herself with great ceremony as Briar. Is it true you told Alpha Kale where Raven soldiers would cross before they crossed? Yes, my brother says. You're a spy. A spy works in secret. I spoke in war room with 7 witnesses. What are you then? Lyra looks out over the dark valley. Greywater River catching moonlight 3 miles south. The boundary between what she left and what she's becoming, I'm figuring that out. Briar finds this satisfactory. Sits down. Legs dangling over the edge, the other pups settle around her. Easy, uncomplicated. The way young animals haven't learned to be careful around strangers yet, they stay for an hour, ask questions about tactics and perimeter defense, and whether it's true she designed Coldfire's northern setup when she was only 19. When Lyra walks them back to the stairs, she stands in the quiet and feels something move through her she can't name. She was Luna for 3 years, managed intelligence networks, ran diplomatic negotiations, built trade infrastructure, but no one ever just sat with her, without needing something fixed, without agenda, without measuring her worth against what she could provide. Kale finds her at the parapet that evening, stops beside her, says nothing for a long moment. This is characteristic of him she's learning. He doesn't fill silences. He inhabits them with the same steady presence he brings to everything else. They say, you killed your predecessor, yes, did you? Yes. No hesitation, no justification. Just fact. Lyra turns to look at him. Wait, he was selling pack members to trafficking network in Southern Territories. Young wolves. Omegas mostly. 23 and 18 months, the words land flat. Matter of fact, like he's reciting coordinates. I gave him opportunity to stop, confronted him privately, showed him evidence, offered path to step down quietly, pause. He didn't take it. Lyra processes this, thinks about the way Iron Veil moves. Confident, not afraid. The texture of a pack that follows their alpha not from fear but genuine conviction that he acts from principle not ego. Thinks about Briar on the wall. Legs dangling, entirely unafraid. I want to give you something. Kale's attention sharpens, doesn't move, but she feels it. Everything I know about Coldfire's real vulnerabilities. The deep ones. Not because I owe you. Because it's the right exchange, and because Raven having strategic advantage over you is no longer something I'm willing to be complicit in. Tell me, they spend the next 2 hours on the wall, temperature dropping, stars wheeling overhead. Lyra walks him through it all, the Eastern Lumber Alliance. Raven never diversified suppliers, single point of failure. Disrupt the alliance and Coldfire's entire construction economy collapses. 3 senior warriors, whose loyalty is to pack welfare, not alpha ego. Their names, their concerns. How to approach them if recruitment becomes strategic option. The unclaimed forest supply route Raven never properly secured because he was too focused on visible borders. Perfect infiltration vector, financial irregularities. The payments to Silverfin Pack, Ceres's father receiving resources far beyond standard aid packages. Documentation Lyra kept copies of before she left. Kale listens, asks precise questions, retains everything with the focused attention of someone who understands the value of good intelligence. When she finishes, the stars have shifted significantly. The cold has deepened into the bone-aching freeze that comes before dawn. What do you want, Lyra? The question catches her off guard. Not what can you give me? Not what's your price? What do you want? Like her desires matter separate from their utility. She thinks about it. Honestly, to be useful. Not decorative, not managed. To work at the thing I'm actually good at, in a place that won't ask me to be smaller than I am. Then stay, not come back to me. Not I need you, just stay, like it's the most obvious thing in the world. Like her value is self-evident and doesn't require justification. I'll stay. Week 3, the exodus begins. Starts quietly. Family in Coldfire's outer territories packs belongings in darkness. Slips across border. Then 3 young warriors, whose loyalty always ran deeper to pack welfare than alpha ego. Then Omega Healer, who watched Ceres systematically dismantle everything that made Coldfire worth living in. They come to Greywater Crossing, not as army. As refugees, Kale receives each one. Opens the gate. Asks no political questions. Just provides quarters and integration support. Lyra meets with every family that arrives, not as Luna. Not with any title, just as someone who made the same crossing and understands exactly what it cost. What made you leave? She catalogs the answers. Financial mismanagement, Ceres's faction undermining morale. Decisions made without input. Voices suppressed in council. The same erosion she experienced. Playing out across the entire pack, she helps warriors integrate into Iron Veil patrol rotations, helps families find quarters, helps the healer establish second treatment room in Bryn's wing. By week 5, 47 wolves have crossed. Coldfire is hemorrhaging. That's when Owen arrives. Lyra's in the war room reviewing supply route documentation when Thalia appears in the doorway. You have a visitor. Your former beta. Lyra looks up. Heart rate doesn't change. Tactical brain already calculating why Owen would come. What it means. What it costs him. She finds him in the courtyard, still wearing Coldfire colors, carrying 3 leather-bound ledgers like they're made of lead. His face when he sees her. Relief. Guilt. Determination. Luna. Former Luna. Just Lyra now. Lyra then. He sets the ledgers on a stone bench, hands shaking slightly. I stayed loyal until loyalty meant being complicit. These are Coldfire's financial records. 3 years. They show embezzlement, irregular payments to Silverfin Pack, suppression of dissent in council minutes. Everything you warned him about that he ignored. Lyra stares at the ledgers. Evidence, proof, ammunition for any tribunal or political challenge. You're testifying, not a question. Statement, yes, it's why I'm here. I can't serve an alpha who values performance over pack welfare, who strikes his Luna for doing her job, who'd rather believe convenient lies than uncomfortable truth. He meets her eyes. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner, I thought. I convinced myself it would get better, that he'd see reason, that Ceres would leave, and things would return to normal. They never return to normal after something breaks. No, they don't. Owen stays, integrates into Iron Veil, with the same quiet competence he brought to Coldfire. Starts working with Thalia on defensive coordination. brings institutional knowledge that fills gaps in Iron Vale's strategic planning. Evening of the seventh family's arrival, Thalia finds Lyra in the war room, leans against doorframe, arms crossed. Expression Lyra's learning to recognize as her version of warmth. Spare, unsentimental. But genuine, you know what you're doing? Organizing refugee intake. Building a pack. Lyra looks up from the supply manifest she's reviewing. Iron Vale is Kale's pack. Iron Vale is whoever fights for it. That's always been true here. Pause. You're not a guest anymore. I think you know that. Day 14 Raven comes to the gate. Sends runner at dawn. Message simple. Direct. Parley request. Alpha Raven Drake seeks audience regarding diplomatic matter. Requests 1 hour with Luna Lyra Vale. Kale brings the message to War Room, where Lyra's reviewing patrol schedules, rides it aloud without inflection. Looks at her. Your call. Let him come. He can't accept that I left. He needs to see it to believe it. I'll be in the room. No. It needs to be me alone. Otherwise, he frames it as your influence. Kale's jaw tightens. Almost imperceptibly. If you need me, you'll know where I am. 20 feet away? 20 feet. Raven arrives at noon. Parley flag. 6 wolves and escort old protocol. The kind that requires Kale to receive envoy or violate interpack accords. Kale receives him at top of stone steps, Thalia on his left, Lieutenant Senna on his right, 40 Iron Vale warriors in formation behind them. Absolutely still, Lyra stands at Kale's left shoulder, not behind him, not to the side at his shoulder, the stance of one commander beside another. She wears Iron Vale colors, charcoal and deep green, done with silver and white and everything they represented. Owen leads the envoy. Sees Lyra the moment he clears the gate. Something complicated moves through his face. Relief that she's standing, that she looks healthy, strong. And beneath that something heavier. Knowing what comes next won't be easy. He addresses Kahale in formal Parley language. The demand for Lyra's return. Diplomatic framing that characterizes her presence in Iron Vale as abduction. Violation of interpack law. Grounds for formal complaint to High Council. Kale lets him finish. She's here by choice. Stays by choice. If you dispute that, take it to High Council. Owen's eyes shift to Lyra. The Alpha requests you return. He wishes to speak with you. Lyra's voice carries across the courtyard. Clear, unwavering, no single syllable. But it lands like verdict. Tell Raven the bond is severed. Tell him I am no longer his Luna, his mate, or his property. Tell him next time he sends envoy to this gate, I will be standing here in exactly this position. Her voice drops, just for Owen, the man who stood beside her through 3 years of watching Raven's slow deterioration. Tell the pack I'm well. The ones who need to know, Owen's chin dips. Smallest acknowledgement, controlled, precise. He turns his horse toward the gate. Thalia watches them leave. He'll come himself next time. Yes. Kaelza looks at Lyra. Are we ready? Yes. Day 21 Raven comes alone. No escort, no ceremony. Just single message delivered at dawn, I'm coming in. 1 hour. Just us, Lyra agrees. Kale walks her to the stone anteroom where formal negotiations happen. Bare walls. No windows. Single table. 2 chairs. He stops at the door. Looks at her with something in his expression that costs him effort to keep neutral. I'll be 20 feet down the corridor. If you need me, you'll hear it. He leaves. Positions himself exactly 20 feet down the corridor. Close enough to reach her in seconds. Far enough to honor her request for privacy. Lyra sits, waits, hears footsteps. Measured. Familiar. The sound of Raven's boots on stone floors echoing through 3 years of memories. The door opens. He looks terrible. Still tall. Still broad-shouldered. Still physically everything an alpha is supposed to be. But the certainty he always carried is fraying. Coming apart at the edges. Like expensive fabric exposed to weather it wasn't designed to withstand. He stops when he sees her. Sees the Iron Vale colors. The absence of silver jewelry she always wore. The way she sits in the room taking up exactly the space she needs without apologizing for it. His eyes find the bruise. Faded now to yellow-green. But still visible. Pain crosses his face. Real pain. First time she's seen actual emotion break through the carefully maintained alpha mask. Come home. 2 words. Waited with everything unsaid. No. 1 word. Final, the bond is broken, Raven. Fully severed, silence stretches between them. Heavy, suffocating, Saris is gone. Her father called her back, his voice cracks slightly. I made a mistake. Yes, you did. I'm telling you I know that. Lyra's voice stays quiet. No heat, no anger, which is somehow worse than rage, Raven. You struck me in front of your pack. Not in rage, not reflex. You struck me to show Saris you would. You chose performance of your loyalty to her over my physical safety. In front of 400 witnesses. And when it was done, you turned away from me to look at her. He has nothing to say. For first time in 3 years, Raven Drake sits in front of her with absolutely nothing to say. Lyra leans forward. Slightly. I don't hate you. But listen carefully. She holds his gaze. I built 60% of what you call your kingdom. The trade routes. Mine. The intelligence network. Mine. The peace treaties. Mine. I was the architect. You were the face people saw at ceremonies. Raven's jaw tightens. The exodus. They're not leaving because Iron Veil recruited them. They're leaving because without me holding it together, they finally see what you are. A charismatic figurehead with no operational competence. His face, worse than losing a mate. He lost the foundation of his power. Lyra stands. Go home, Raven. Run your pack if you still can. And next time a woman in your pack tells you something is wrong, listen to her. Don't wait until she's gone before you believe it. She walks out, finds Kale exactly 20 feet from the door. Arms crossed. Face arranged into something neutral that isn't quite succeeding. He's leaving, I heard, his voice even, his eyes not. She looks at him, this man who pulled her from the river, who gave her war room and respect and space to rebuild herself without asking her to be smaller, who stood 20 feet away from conversation that must have required every ounce of restraint he possesses and didn't intrude. Thank you. For the 20 feet, something shifts in his expression. Thank you for coming back around that corner. 3 months after Lyra crossed the Greywater, Raven Drake stands before the High Council of Pax. He called the tribunal himself, characterized the mass movement of Coldfire wolves across the border as Iron Veil's systematic destabilization of neighboring territory. Violation of interpact neutrality agreements. Grounds for sanctions. The council chamber is vast circular room of pale stone. Neutral territory. 6 council members at elevated bench. Gallery packed with representatives from 12 packs, watching with focused attention of people who understand whatever precedent gets set today will govern their own futures. Lyra travels to the council seat with Kale, with Thalia, with Owen, who carries the financial ledgers like they're made of something heavier than leather and paper. The chamber goes quiet when they enter. Lyra wears Iron Veil colors, charcoal and deep green, hair pulled back severe, no jewelry, no makeup covering the faded remnants of bruise that still shows if you know where to look. She looks like exactly what she is. Strategic architect, intelligence officer, woman who walked away from Empire and built something better. Raven stands at the central floor, sees her. Something moves through his face, complicated, painful, like he's only just beginning to understand the full scope of what he destroyed. The proceedings are methodical, comprehensive. The council hears from Raven first. He presents his case with the polished delivery of someone who's had weeks to practice. The 47 wolves who left Coldfire, the revenue decline, the border incidents, all framed as consequences of Iron Veil's interference rather than his own leadership failure. Iron Veil harbored my Luna without legal justification, recruited my pack members through coercion and manipulation, destabilized my territory through deliberate systematic interference in Coldfire's internal affairs. He's good. Lyra has to give him that. He always was good at presentation, at making himself look reasonable even when reality told different story. The council hears from 3 Coldfire wolves who were present in the Great Hall that night. Their accounts align perfectly. The slap, the sound it made, the way Raven turned away to comfort Saris instead of checking whether his Luna was even standing. They hear from Owen. He testifies for 20 minutes. Precise, clinical, the flat affect of someone who's made peace with burning every bridge behind him. I stood 8 feet away when Alpha Drake struck Luna Lyra. I saw her head snap left. I saw blood on her lip. I saw my Alpha choose a woman he'd known 8 weeks over the architect of everything he called his success. Pause. I served Alpha Drake for 5 years. I believed in his vision, his leadership, but leadership requires integrity. And striking your Luna in front of your pack to impress a guest demonstrates failure of integrity so profound. I could no longer serve in good conscience. The gallery stays silent, absolute. Then it's Lyra's turn. She speaks for 40 minutes, doesn't raise her voice once, presents evidence with the same methodical precision she brought to every intelligence briefing. Every tactical analysis, every treaty negotiation, trade route designs, her signature, her handwriting, dated 3 years prior, intelligence network schematics, her code system, her protocols, peace treaty drafts, her diplomatic language, her negotiation notes. She spreads them across the council table like laying out map coordinates. I wasn't decoration. I was chief operating officer. I built 60% of Coldfire's infrastructure, the trade routes that increased revenue 40%. The intelligence network that prevented 3 border conflicts. The peace treaty with Eastern Alliance that everyone said was impossible. She presents data. Coldfire revenue, down 34% in 3 months after her departure. Border incidents 0 to 2. Eastern Alliance treaty on verge of collapse, per Alliance diplomatic testimony, submitted to council as supporting evidence. I didn't leave because Iron Veil recruited me. I left because my Alpha struck me in front of our pack. Because he valued performance over partnership. Because the bond that's supposed to be sacred permanent anchor became chain I had to break to survive. Her voice stays level, but every word lands like hammer strike. 47 wolves didn't leave because Iron Veil recruited them. They left because Coldfire's leadership failed them. I simply provided proof that leaving was possible. She pauses, looks directly at the senior council member. Luna's departure is lawful under Clause 7 of the mate bond provisions. Physical harm by bonded partner. A pack member's relocation is lawful under Clause 12. Demonstrated leadership failure. Iron Veil broke no laws. Owen presents the financial ledgers. 3 years of records. Embezzlement. Irregular payments to Silverfin Pack. Suppressed dissent in council minutes. Everything Lyra warned Raven about that he ignored. The evidence speaks for itself. The senior council member reviews the materials. Takes her time. No one rushes her. Finally, she looks up, oars the chamber. The council finds no legal basis for any claim on Lyra Veil. Her departure from Coldfire Pack constitutes lawful withdrawal under Clause 7. The population movement from Coldfire to Iron Veil constitutes lawful exercise of individual pack members' rights under circumstances of demonstrated leadership failure. She pauses, looks directly at Raven. However, that single word carries weight of impending judgment. Alpha Drake's pack lost 47 members in 3 months. Revenue declined 34%. 2 treaties are failing. Border security has deteriorated. This pattern indicates systemic leadership incompetence. Another pause. Longer. Alpha Raven Drake is hereby placed under High Council supervision for 18 months. Quarterly audits mandatory. Council observers will monitor all major decisions. Failure to stabilize Coldfire Pack within supervision period will result in forced abdication and appointment of interim leadership. The gallery erupts. Contained murmur rippling through representatives. Raven's face goes blank. Shock. Then something darker. Realization settling like frost. He didn't just lose Lyra. He lost autonomy. His authority is now conditional. Every decision monitored. Every failure documented. His eyes find hers across the chamber. She looks back. Clear. Final. No triumph. No cruelty. Just closure. The expression of woman who made peace with a chapter and closed it cleanly. He looks away first. 1 week after the tribunal. First real snow of the season comes down from Ashford Peaks. Covers Iron Veil Courtyard in clean white silence. Lyra finishes the map. 6 weeks of work since she started the project after the tribunal concluded. Every ridge, every crossing point, every defensive position. Rendered with precision, she learned mapping Coldfire's northern perimeter 7 years ago, but refined through everything she's experienced since. She unrolls it on the war room table. Kale standing across from her, the southern border clearly marked. Vale Crossing, her family name, not Raven's, not even her mate bond connection, her own name, her own legacy. Iron Vale's first complete territory map. I'm done being invisible labor. Kale studies it, traces the routes she marked, the defensive positions, the supply corridors. This goes in the war room, under your name, and you'll complete the rest as Chief Intelligence Officer. Official rank, official council seat, not advisor. Decision maker, the words land, settle. Official rank, not courtesy title, not temporary assignment. Actual position with actual authority. That'll take years. Full territory mapping, yes, you have them. Lyra thinks about the girl who wanted to be cartographer, who set it aside because Pack needed intelligence officer, who spent 7 years building other people's empires, now standing in a war room. Holding a map with her own name marking the southern border, she rolls the map carefully, holds it against her chest. Then I'd better start. Kale reaches out, pushes strand of hair from her face, movement gentle, at odds with the scarred severity of his hands, consistent with every quiet, decided thing she's learned about him. Below in the courtyard, Briar has organized pups into opposing factions over largest snowdrift. Negotiations appear to be breaking down. Briar looks up, sees Lyra watching, raises both arms in triumph. Lyra raises one hand back, 8 years before she runs this pack. 7. She recruited 2 allies in the last 5 minutes. Lyra laughs, real, unguarded, the kind of sound that surprises her slightly with its own existence. Kale watches her laugh, makes no effort to conceal what's on his face. They stand on the wall walk, snow falling around them. Unhurried, clean. 3 miles south, the gray water runs swift and dark, marking boundary between what Lyra left and what she became. In the great hall of Coldfire Peak, a fire has gone out. Raven sits alone in it, finally understanding the precise weight of what he threw away, and finding it considerably heavier than he anticipated. He struck a Luna. He didn't know he was destroying the architect of his empire, and on the high wall of Iron Vale stronghold, Lyra Vale holds map of everything she made her own, and does not look south. The lessons Lyra's journey teaches aren't soft. They're not about love or romance or finding the right person. They're about something harder, more universal, more uncomfortable, about the difference between being valuable and being recognized, about what happens when those two things separate. When the work you do and the credit you receive belong to different people. When you spend years building infrastructure for someone who calls it his. For men over 60 watching this story unfold, there's something familiar in it. You've seen this dynamic. Maybe lived it, maybe perpetrated it, maybe both. The CEO who took credit for the engineering team's breakthrough. The general who claimed victories won by sergeants, whose names appeared in no headlines. The politician reading speeches drafted by staff working 18-hour days in basement offices. The boss whose entire operation runs on the quiet competence of someone whose name isn't on the door. Raven isn't a monster. That's part of what makes the story land. He's not violent by nature, not abusive in the calculated way villains usually are. He's something worse in some ways. He's mediocre alpha, who inherited a position and married a woman whose competence kept him looking impressive, who confused her quiet support for his own brilliance, who believed his own publicity until she walked out and the publicity stopped matching reality. Then he discovered what was actually keeping his kingdom standing. It wasn't him. It was never him. It was the woman 3 steps behind him at every photo opportunity, holding the actual schematics nobody asked to see, doing the work nobody bothered to credit. The question this story asks isn't whether Lyra was right to leave. That's obvious, the harder question. The one that sits with you after the story ends is whether you've been Raven, whether somewhere in your career, or your marriage, or your family, there's someone holding it together while you take the credit. Whether you've created an environment where the most competent person in your life has learned to make themselves smaller because their full size threatens your sense of self. Whether the silence around you that you mistake for peace is actually somebody calculating an exit. These aren't comfortable questions, but they're the right ones, because the alternative is being Raven at the end of the story. Sitting alone in an empty hall, realizing too late what you had. Watching your kingdom dissolve because the foundation walked away, and you didn't know she was the foundation until she was gone. Or being Lyra 18 months in. Edited. Diminished. Performing competence small enough that it doesn't threaten the person who depends on it, until one day something breaks that can't be repaired, and you walk across a river in the dark because staying would cost you more than leaving. Both endings are tragic, but only one is necessary. The other is a choice, made every day, by people who think loyalty means tolerance, who confuse silence with support, who believe presence is the same thing as competence. It isn't. It never was. And recognizing that, really sitting with it, looking at your own life, and asking honestly, whether you're the architect or the figurehead, whether you're surrounded by people who tell you what you need to know or what you want to hear, whether the empire you've built would stand without you or collapse the moment you stepped away. That recognition is the first move toward being the kind of leader people stay for, or the kind they design escape routes from when they're 21 years old, just in case. Have you ever stayed in a situation longer than you should have because you were afraid of losing what you'd built? Have you ever walked away from something that looked perfect from the outside but felt hollow on the inside? Have you been Lyra, holding together someone else's life while your own potential collected dust? Have you been Raven, standing at the front of a room you didn't actually build, taking credit for work you couldn't replicate if you tried? Have you watched it happen to someone you love? The slow erosion of a brilliant person who learned to make themselves smaller for someone who never deserved them. Or maybe you're standing at your own Greywater River right now, looking across at unknown territory, trying to decide if you're brave enough to cross, trying to calculate whether what you'll lose is worth what you might gain, trying to remember whether you were always this small or whether you got that way one compromise at a time. The thing nobody tells you about walking away, about severing bonds that hurt more than help, about crossing rivers in the dark with nothing but a contingency plan, and the conviction that staying will cost you more than leaving, is that the freedom isn't in the walking. It's in what comes after. When you finally stop apologizing for the space you take up. When you find people who say your name belongs on the map you drew. The systems you designed, the legacy you built, not as courtesy, not as afterthought, as acknowledgement of simple, observable truth. You were the architect all along. And once you see that, once you really see it, you can't unsee it. You can only decide what to do next. Stay small. Keep building someone else's kingdom. Hope they eventually notice. Or walk. Cross your river. Build something with your name on it. Tell us in the comments which one you're choosing, because somebody watching this needs to hear that they're not alone. That other people have stood where they're standing. That the water is cold, but the shelf holds. That the patrol on the other side might actually carry them in. Carefully. And that the empire they build over there, the one with their own name on it, might be better than anything they're leaving behind.